So first I started by noting the fit of one of her jackets. That way I could trace it to make the shape of her bodice. Next, I laid out one of my old t-shirts in orange. That way I could start cutting it, so I would have flat orange fabric to work with. Brown dogs look very good against orange backdrops, so I figured they would look good with orange dresses. Here I'm checking the fit of the coat itself and how big it is on the fabric that I have here. Since it's just the bodice and not the back of the dress, or I guess the skirt part, I decided that I was going to use the part with the printed design so I could turn it on the inside and it wouldn't show. Then I marked it and folded it over so I could cut it out. Now that I have two pieces, we go sew, and as you can see, Mazie's keeping me company. I sewed all the way around it with a gold thread, and I turned it much like you would a pillow. That way there's no ugly seams and it looks nice and finished. Also, this stupid thread that I have, it kept breaking every 2 seconds. You'll see in a few moments that I ended up switching it for an orange thread because it would not stop snapping. Here I just turned it with a blunt pencil that I had on hand behind the sewing machine. Now I'm just going very close to the seams, that way it just flattens it out and makes sure that the seams don't move around. Right about now I got fed up with that thread. And here's a little test fit to see how it looks on Mazie. This is me just measuring the length of the back because originally I was going to make the skirt part out of the stretch material as well. Here's me just picking out the fabric to use for the back. So originally I was going to use some store-bought fabric from my grandma's stash that she's collected over the years, but actually I ended up using some other upcycled fabric that was in a very similar orange, and it's upcycled because I used it to make a quilt for my friend. Now I'm measuring how big that back piece from the shirt was, because it was the right width regardless of what fabric I decide to use. It ended up being 15 inches, and so I'm cutting out my fabric so that it's bigger than 15 inches because I want to add pleats to it. At this point, I decided I wanted tiers, but to have tiers, you still have to sew it to a back piece because they won't stay together on their own. So I ended up using the stretch material anyway. And look, I'm not even going to try to pretend I'm a math genius. This was just a miracle that it was the right size. So here I'm just finishing the edges of all the tiers that I'm going to put on the skirt part of the dress. I skipped through most of it because it was boring, but basically I'm just going along the bottom and both sides. The top doesn't matter because it's going to be sewn to the stretchy fabric anyway. Here I'm laying out the spacing of the tiers. I wanted them to be really close together, but then I decided that if I gradually made the gaps smaller, it might look better. This is just me counting how big the width is because I forgot. Now, I suppose these aren't actually proper pleats because they're not evenly spaced, but I really like how nice and pretty the ruffles look either way. This is just me ruffling it and then pinning it, and I'm just keep doing that until it reaches a 15-inch width. Then I pin the first tier to the bottom of the skirt piece. I'm just going to sew this straight across and continue going up. Now that the first tier is done, I get to rinse, lather, and repeat. I had to do the exact same steps except, I guess, change the distancing between the tiers to go up until I was out of tiers. Okay, so now that the final tier is on, we get to attach the bodice. I'm doing air quotes, but you can't see them. Okay, so basically you just pin it the same way that you do everything, right sides together. I guess I kind of smushed it together so it would fit better. It didn't really change much because the pleats are so uneven anyway. But basically that's it, and then you just sew straight across again. Really quick fitting check. Next step was to add Velcro, so I can actually close it. I didn't add the Velcro for the waist until the end, you'll see that later, but I ended up using different types of Velcro for both. This is just a really thick Velcro, so because there's, less room for error when you're tightening it on the dog, it doesn't have to be as long. Yet another fitting check. It was really handy that Mazie decided to stay next to me this time. Okay, now the straps for the waist. So I ended up using a, what do you call it? Wow, what's the name? A sleeve. That's the name. I ended up using a sleeve. I just made it into a tube, sewed off the tube, cut the tube in half, and then put Velcro on them, and then just sewed it to the dress. I mean, it's just straps. It's not that complicated. And would you look at that? The dress is finally done and it fits her really well. And I'm really happy because her birthday is on Saturday, the 30th of May. And so this time I don't have to make it on the same day of her birthday like I do every year.